Urgent, explosive news about the trade of LeBron James to the Dallas Mavericks. Stay until the end to find out everything, but first leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any news about the Lakers. During the 2025 NBA offseason, the basketball world was stirred by whispers surrounding LeBron James and a potential move that could have altered the league's landscape. According to John Hollinger of The Athletic, sources within the NBA revealed that the 40-year-old superstar had considered a surprising destination, the Dallas Mavericks. Before finalizing his decision to opt into his contract with the Los Angeles Lakers for the 2025-26 season, LeBron reportedly had his eyes set on the Mavericks as a possible next chapter. The idea wasn't just fleeting. Multiple insiders noted that he seriously evaluated the move, weighing all the angles: legacy, competitiveness, financial implications, and long-term vision. At this stage of his illustrious career, LeBron remains driven by the pursuit of one final championship run. Despite his decorated resume and his place atop the NBA's all-time scoring list, the hunger to compete for titles still burns bright. That desire made Dallas an intriguing option. With Luka Doncic leading a dynamic roster and Kyrie Irving, LeBron's former teammate in Cleveland, already in place, the Mavs presented both a reunion and a fresh opportunity to contend. But not everything aligned. The biggest obstacle standing between LeBron and a Dallas jersey was financial. His player option with the Lakers was worth a staggering $52 million, a sum that no other team could realistically match without tearing apart their rosters or sacrificing key assets. The Mavericks, constrained by the salary cap, could only offer him a non-taxpayer mid-level exception, approximately $14.1 million. For someone of LeBron's stature and production, such a drastic pay cut was a significant deterrent. While James has made hundreds of millions throughout his career, the idea of giving up nearly $40 million in guaranteed salary, particularly at 40 years old, made little financial sense. That alone was enough to stall any serious discussions with Dallas. Still, the flirtation was real. Even after officially committing to the Lakers by exercising his option, LeBron left the door slightly open. Through his longtime agent Rich Paul, the message was clear. If the Lakers roster failed to convince him of their competitiveness, he wouldn't rule out a departure, even if it meant a mid-season trade. This uncertainty sent ripples throughout the league. Other teams, not just Dallas, began quietly assessing whether they had the flexibility, talent, and draft capital to make a move if LeBron's situation soured in LA. It wasn't just about money, it was about contention, legacy, and control over his twilight years in the NBA. Back in Texas, the Mavericks were watching closely. The idea of pairing LeBron with Doncic and Irving was tantalizing. Add to that the presence of Cooper Flagg, the top pick in the 2025 NBA draft and a generational talent, and the potential for greatness was hard to ignore. LeBron's basketball IQ, leadership, and experience could elevate a team already on the verge of true contention. But time was not on their side. The window for negotiations closed as swiftly as it opened. Ultimately, the Lakers never seriously engaged in trade talks. According to Dan Woike and Joe Vardon, also of The Athletic, the organization remained confident in its direction and in LeBron's commitment. From their perspective, there was no need to panic. LeBron, now entering his 8th season in Los Angeles, had long established himself as the face of the franchise. His averages, 27.2 points, 8.1 assists, and 7.9 rebounds across 419 games, reflected not just longevity but continued dominance. And so, the Lakers look ahead to the upcoming season with LeBron James still at the helm. They expect him to report to training camp as a vocal leader, both on and off the floor, guiding the next generation while chasing one last ring. The Mavericks, meanwhile, are left to wonder what might have been. A vision of LeBron in blue and silver that now fades into speculation. While the public speculation around LeBron James and the Mavericks remained quiet, the atmosphere behind closed doors in Dallas told a very different story. Within the walls of the Mavericks front office, conversations were taking place daily. Though no official negotiations with LeBron's camp ever took off, the organization was actively brainstorming scenarios in which acquiring the league's biggest name might be possible, however unlikely. General Manager Nico Harrison, a former Nike executive and someone with deep ties to LeBron through past professional circles, was reportedly intrigued by the idea. Harrison knew firsthand how LeBron's presence could shift not only the performance of a team on the court but also elevate the organization as a whole. Ticket sales, media attention, global branding, James brought a wave with him wherever he went. The hypothetical was simple, but execution was nearly impossible. How could Dallas land LeBron without blowing up a roster already designed to contend? Luka Doncic was untouchable. Kyrie Irving, despite his mercurial nature, had proven to be a key piece in the Mavericks system and had strong chemistry with Luka. Cooper Flagg, though unproven in the NBA, was considered by many to be the most promising young player since LeBron himself entered the league in 2003. And therein lay the dilemma. To bring in James, the Mavericks would either need to get the core that made them attractive in the first place or hope for a miracle, that LeBron would agree to sign for far below market value. Internally, the Mavericks explored both short-term and long-term implications. What would a one-year deal with LeBron look like? How would it affect their salary cap and future flexibility? Would a short-term sacrifice be worth the potential for a title and the attention that follows a LeBron-led squad? Head coach Jason Kidd, another former teammate of LeBron from the 2012 Olympic team, also liked the concept. He envisioned James as the final chess piece, someone who could mentor Flagg, complement Doncic, and take pressure off Kyrie. The balance of experience and youth was rare in today's NBA, and the idea of molding it all around LeBron's vision was an opportunity Kidd felt was worth the internal discussion. But despite the intrigue, there was caution. Dallas had been burned before. Free agency flirtations that ended in disappointment were not new to the organization. They remembered missing out on elite talent in past off-seasons and were determined not to make public missteps or chase dreams that were logistically out of reach. So they stayed quiet, respectful of LeBron's decision process and unwilling to leak anything that might jeopardize future dealings. Instead, they focused inward. How could they maximize what they already had? Luka Doncic was the franchise cornerstone, and at just 26, his prime was stretching far into the future. Flagg represented the next wave, raw, hungry, and full of upside. The team had retained key role players and added veteran depth in the offseason. With or without LeBron, the Mavericks were still a legitimate playoff threat, perhaps even more. Yet the thought lingered. What if LeBron changed his mind mid-season? Rich Paul's message had not gone unnoticed in Dallas. LeBron wasn't fully locked in. If he sensed that Los Angeles couldn't compete, he might ask for a trade. That possibility, however remote, was enough to keep Dallas quietly monitoring the situation, running cap scenarios and mock trade packages just in case. The Mavericks analytics team studied LeBron's game closely. Despite his age, the numbers showed he was still elite. His efficiency, shot selection, assist ratio, and impact on both ends of the court ranked among the league's best. Conditioning was never a concern with LeBron. If anything, his training discipline was legendary. From an XS and OS perspective, the fit was promising. Doncic and Irving were ball-dominant, yes, but LeBron had thrived in such systems before. He could operate off the ball, function as a secondary playmaker, and even slide into a power forward role when needed. His adaptability remained one of his greatest strengths. The final question became philosophical. Did the Mavericks want to go all in now, or stay the course with their long-term plan? For the time being, they chose the latter. But the internal flame of possibility hadn't been extinguished. They knew LeBron wasn't done, and if the Lakers faltered, they wanted to be ready. In El Segundo, California, the headquarters of the Los Angeles Lakers, there was a quiet storm brewing. Though LeBron James had officially opted into his $52 million player option for the 2025-26 season, the organization wasn't taking anything for granted. They had seen enough in their storied history to know that loyalty in the NBA was fluid, especially when championships were on the line. Rob Pelinka, the Lakers' vice president of basketball operations and general manager, had spent the offseason walking a delicate line. On one hand, the front office had to show LeBron they were still fully committed to winning, building a roster that could realistically compete for a title. On the other, they had to manage long-term sustainability and avoid mortgaging the future for a potentially short-term payoff. LeBron's indecision, or at least his openness to alternatives, had not gone unnoticed. While he had not issued trade demands or ultimatums, his agent Rich Paul made it clear. If the Lakers weren't contenders by mid-season, all options were on the table. This wasn't unfamiliar territory for the Lakers. They'd been through the Kobe Bryant years where roster building and cap juggling were always under the spotlight. But LeBron brought a different kind of gravity. His influence stretched beyond basketball decisions, into media, endorsements, and global branding. His presence elevated the franchise's relevance, but also added pressure to remain elite. Behind closed doors, the Lakers brass held strategy meetings throughout June and July. The key question was simple. What would it take to convince LeBron that this team could win now? They started by examining the current core. Anthony Davis, still in his prime and signed long-term, remained the franchise's centerpiece alongside LeBron. The duo had won a title together in 2020 and had developed strong chemistry on both ends of the court. But injuries and inconsistent supporting casts had hindered them in recent years. The coaching staff, now led by former player and rising tactician Charles Lee, brought a new energy. Lee, known for his defensive schemes and player development emphasis, had LeBron's respect. His challenge was to optimize a veteran roster without exhausting its older stars. Pelinka focused on depth, bringing in capable role players, shooters, and defenders who could ease the load. Austin Reeves remained a key piece, growing into a confident ball handler and off-ball threat. Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and D'Angelo Russell were retained, but the front office was active in trade talks to possibly upgrade the backcourt further. And then came the decision to pass on pursuing major stars via trade, a decision made in part to keep draft flexibility open should things go south and a reset became necessary. The message to LeBron was subtle but clear. We believe in this group, but we're ready to pivot if needed. Still, the tension lingered. Would LeBron buy in fully? Would he trust the front office's restraint as wisdom, or interpret it as hesitancy? Within the locker room, LeBron continued to lead, but teammates sensed his watchful eye. He remained engaged in practices, mentoring younger players and staying present in team meetings, yet the feeling that something was being evaluated loomed. Media narratives added fuel to the speculation. Every move, every quote, every subtle action was dissected. Was LeBron unusually complimentary of Luka Doncic? Did a vague Instagram story imply dissatisfaction? Was Rich Paul's presence at a Mavericks game coincidental or intentional? Despite the noise, the Lakers remained firm. LeBron James was the centerpiece and they weren't entertaining trade discussions. Their stance was partially strategic. By avoiding open talks, they retained leverage. If LeBron ever pushed for a move, they could dictate terms, demand key assets, and avoid being backed into a corner. But more than that, it was about pride. The Lakers didn't want to be the franchise that let the league's greatest player walk away in the twilight of his career, not without a final run. Publicly, the organization projected calm. Pelinka praised LeBron's commitment. Coach Lee emphasized team unity. Ownership stayed quiet but supportive, trusting the basketball minds they'd put in place. Internally, however, they knew the clock was ticking. LeBron wasn't playing forever. Every season not spent in title contention was a missed opportunity, a dent in legacy, a chapter unwritten. The Lakers weren't just trying to keep LeBron in Los Angeles. They were fighting to give him one last ring, one final parade down Figueroa Street. And if they failed, they knew what the consequence could be. As the summer wore on, LeBron James found himself in a space that was both familiar and unfamiliar. The center of the NBA universe, yet deeply introspective. At 40 years old, the man who had redefined what longevity meant in professional basketball wasn't just thinking about the next game. He was contemplating the final stretch of his historic journey. For LeBron, basketball was never just a game. It was a platform, a mission, a story being written across 2 decades of dominance, adversity, reinvention, and cultural impact. And now that story was nearing its final chapters. Privately, LeBron spent more time with his inner circle, wife Savannah, his sons Bronny and Bryce, and his longtime business partner Maverick Carter. Conversations were less about stats and highlights and more about meaning. What would this final phase represent? What message would it send to fans, to his peers, to the next generation? He knew what was at stake. Every decision, to stay, to leave, to chase one more ring or to mentor the next superstar, would shape how his legacy would be remembered. The thought of joining the Mavericks wasn't random. It was calculated. Luka Doncic had earned his respect. The Slovenian phenom wasn't just talented. He had the competitive fire and basketball instincts that reminded LeBron of himself in Cleveland. And Kyrie Irving, despite a complicated history, still held a special place in LeBron's mind. Their championship in 2016 bound them forever, and the thought of rekindling that chemistry was tempting. Even more intriguing was Cooper Flagg, the teenage phenom who many were calling the next face of the league. LeBron had seen countless next-up players come and go, but something about Flagg's composure and skill set stood out. Helping guide him could be the perfect way to pass the torch, to shape the future of the game even as his own career wound down. But every possibility came with sacrifice. To make the move to Dallas, LeBron would have had to walk away from $52 million in guaranteed salary, a price he had never considered paying for a maybe. Not because he needed the money but because he valued what that contract represented. Respect, stability, leverage. There was also the matter of Los Angeles. The Lakers weren't just a team, they were a legacy brand like LeBron himself. He had built a second empire there. His entertainment company, media ventures, and philanthropic work through the LeBron James Family Foundation. Uprooting his life, even for one final run, wasn't a decision he could make lightly. Then came the emotional layer. His eldest son, Bronny, had just been drafted into the NBA, ironically by the Lakers themselves. While the decision had sparked debate about nepotism and media narratives for LeBron, it was deeply personal. The chance to share the court with his son wasn't just a milestone, it was a dream realized. Walking away from that, even to pursue another ring, was almost unthinkable. Still, the competitor in him wasn't satisfied. LeBron had never accepted mediocrity. Whether in Miami, Cleveland, or LA, he demanded excellence, not just from others but from himself. If he felt the Lakers weren't serious about contending, he wouldn't hesitate to act. He didn't owe anyone blind loyalty. He had learned that loyalty in the NBA was often a one-way street. But this wasn't just any season. This could be his final prime-level campaign. And that made every choice heavier. Every off-season workout carried more urgency. Every training session with Bronny felt more symbolic. Every media question about retirement struck a little deeper. His body, incredibly, still responded. His mind still sharp. But time was undefeated, and LeBron James, even as he defied its effects, could feel the edges beginning to fray. As the Lakers' training camp approached, he made peace with his decision. For now, he would return. He would lead. He would give Los Angeles one more shot. But behind that calm exterior, he was observing everything. Watching the team's chemistry. Judging the front office's moves. Measuring how much gas was truly left in the tank. Not just his, but the entire organization's. And if the Lakers faltered, he wouldn't hesitate to act. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about legacy. And LeBron James had one final chapter to write, on his terms. For most NBA players, the draft marks a new beginning. For LeBron James, watching his son Bronny hear his name called by the Los Angeles Lakers was both a culmination and a continuation. A moment that transcended basketball. It had been a long time coming. From the moment Bronny picked up a ball as a child, the public had kept watch, scrutinizing every game, every stat line, every dunk. He was LeBron James' son, carrying a name that cast both a shadow and a spotlight. But now, with the Lakers selecting Bronny in the second round of the 2025 NBA draft, history had been made. They would be the first active father-son duo to share an NBA court. For LeBron, it wasn't about setting a record. It was about sharing something sacred. Basketball had shaped his entire life. Now, it was tying him to his son in a way no career plan or endorsement deal ever could. Still, not everyone saw it that way. Critics were quick to question the Lakers' motives. Some analysts accused the franchise of using the pick to appease LeBron, rather than selecting the best available talent. Others argued that Bronny's college and pre-draft performance didn't merit a spot on the Lakers roster. And yet, none of that noise mattered to LeBron. In his eyes, Bronny had earned it. Not through hype, but through persistence. He had battled through a cardiac scare that nearly derailed his career. He had trained in silence, grown in the shadows, and shouldered expectations no young athlete should carry. Being drafted was more than a family moment, it was validation of his son's resilience. The Lakers' front office too understood the emotional significance, but they weren't handing out favors. Bronny had impressed scouts with his defense, composure, and willingness to play a role, even in limited minutes. With LeBron nearing the twilight of his career, investing in his son wasn't just symbolic, it could also be strategic. If Bronny developed under the Lakers system, they'd have a valuable two-way player for years to come. For LeBron, playing alongside Bronny gave this upcoming season a new meaning. The championship chase remained alive, yes. But now it ran parallel to something more personal: mentorship, legacy, and presence. Every moment on the court, every high five, every fast break, every timeout, was a memory in the making. It wasn't just about playing together. It was about witnessing Bronny's journey firsthand, guiding him not from afar, but from the hardwood itself. In practice, LeBron took on a different energy around his son. He was still the leader, vocal, demanding, driven, but with Bronny there was a quiet pride in his gestures. A tap on the shoulder after a missed rotation. A nod of approval after a tough defensive possession. Small moments but meaningful. Bronny, for his part, embraced the challenge. He knew what people were saying. He was used to it. The comparisons, the criticism, it was the cost of his last name. But now, standing in the same jersey as his father, he was determined to write his own path. Not just as LeBron's son, but as Bronny James, a player with his own game, his own mindset, and his own dreams. Their bond extended beyond basketball. At home they watched film together, not just of games but of LeBron's early career. Bronny asked questions. LeBron shared stories. They talked about pressure, expectations, and what it meant to lead. This rare father-son dynamic became a new layer of intrigue for the Lakers season. Media attention grew. Fans flooded social media with clips of their interactions. Jersey sales spiked. For the NBA it was a marketing dream. For the James family it was something more sacred: time. LeBron knew it wouldn't last forever. Whether this was his final season or one of a few remaining, nothing was guaranteed. That's what made every shared possession, every practice lap, every courtside laugh with Bronny so valuable. And if the Lakers didn't reach the top? If the roster couldn't carry the weight of expectation? LeBron would still walk away fulfilled, not because of championships but because of presence. Because through all the money, trophies, and accolades, this season gave him something no other had: the chance to be a father and a teammate. The arrival of Bronny James in the Los Angeles Lakers locker room created a shift in atmosphere, not in a dramatic or divisive way, but in a way that made everyone pause. It wasn't every day that a father and son suited up on the same NBA team. And it definitely wasn't every day that the father happened to be the greatest player of his generation. For veterans like Anthony Davis and D'Angelo Russell, the presence of Bronny was met with quiet respect. They had seen LeBron lead teams through pressure cooker playoff series, carry franchises, and face scrutiny year after year. Seeing him now as a father figure on the court, literally, was surreal. Some teammates described it as historic in real time. Others simply found it inspiring. But make no mistake, the expectations inside the Lakers locker room didn't change. Charles Lee, the team's newly appointed head coach, made it clear from the beginning of training camp: Bronny would be treated like any other rookie. No special treatment. No shortcuts. And to LeBron's credit, he didn't ask for any. If anything, he held Bronny to a higher standard, knowing the microscope he'd be under. Bronny responded the only way he knew how: by putting his head down and working. In early practices, he dove for loose balls, fought through screens, and asked questions in film sessions. He rarely spoke unless spoken to. He was focused on earning respect, not inheriting it. Players like Austin Reeves and Jared Vanderbilt took him under their wing, guiding him through the grind of the pro schedule, the travel demands, and the day-to-day intensity of NBA life. Off the court, the media presence around the team reached a new level. Every interview, every press conference, every practice report seemed to include at least one question about the James duo. Cameras followed LeBron and Bronny walking into arenas together. Social media exploded with clips of them working out, exchanging passes, or just laughing on the sidelines. The Lakers became more than a basketball team, they were a living documentary. Internally, the coaching staff knew this could be a double-edged sword. The attention was great for the brand, for morale, and for league-wide excitement. But distractions could pile up quickly if not carefully managed. Coach Lee worked closely with LeBron to ensure that basketball stayed at the center of everything. And to LeBron's credit, he made it clear. His legacy was not a reality show. He was still chasing another ring, and that mission hadn't changed. The NBA, for its part, leaned into the moment. National broadcasts shifted schedules to air more Lakers games. The league's marketing arm launched a special campaign titled Generations, The James Legacy. Bronny, still adjusting to the pace and physicality of the league, suddenly found himself on magazine covers, shoe deals and early talks and comparisons to his father coming daily. But the players inside the locker room saw a different side of him. They saw a 19-year-old trying to figure it all out. Someone who asked for defensive matchups in practice, who stayed after team drills to shoot threes, who listened more than he spoke. There were no signs of entitlement. Only the weight of expectation, and the determination to stand under it. For LeBron, the experience was bittersweet. He beamed watching his son walk into the Lakers training facility in uniform. But he also recognized the challenges Bronny would face. He knew how brutal the NBA could be, not just physically but psychologically. And while he could lead by example, there were things his son would have to learn the hard way. The elder James chose his moments carefully. He didn't dominate conversations. He let coaches coach. But in critical moments, when Bronny got beat on a backdoor cut or hesitated on an open shot, LeBron offered a word, a look, or a reminder: be ready. You belong. In time, Bronny began to settle in. He wasn't a star, not yet. But he was steady, coachable, and improving. In short bursts off the bench, he brought energy and hustle. In the locker room, he became part of the group, not just the son of a legend. And the Lakers began to gel, not around hype but around purpose. They weren't just chasing a championship for the name on the back of the jersey. They were chasing it for the history unfolding in front of them. For the story of a father and son sharing a dream that once seemed impossible. For the chance to be part of something basketball might never see again. The spotlight was bright, the stakes were high, and the world was watching. But inside that locker room, they weren't thinking about legacy or records. They were thinking about the next practice, the next play, the next win. Because history doesn't write itself, it's earned one game at a time. The opening night of the NBA season arrived with a level of anticipation usually reserved for the finals. The Los Angeles Lakers were hosting the Dallas Mavericks, a poetic twist of fate, given how close LeBron had come to joining them just months earlier. Crypto.com Arena was electric. The floor glowed under the lights, camera flashes filled the air, and two storylines collided. LeBron James beginning his 22nd season in the league and Bronny James making his NBA debut, alongside his father. The Lakers didn't orchestrate a special moment. There was no choreographed ceremony. But when the public address announcer called out the starting lineups and Bronny James stood next to his father in warm-ups, the crowd erupted. Generations of fans. Some who had followed LeBron since his high school days, others who had grown up watching Bronny's YouTube clips, were witnessing history. From tip-off, it was clear that this wasn't just a publicity moment. LeBron was still sharp, fluid in transition, patient in the half-court, and barking out defensive reads like a coach in motion. Bronny, coming off the bench midway through the first quarter, didn't try to steal the spotlight. He ran the offense conservatively, made the right passes, and locked in defensively. His first points came on a corner three, assisted by his father. The arena lost its mind. Social media exploded. ESPN posted the clip within seconds. LeBron to Bronny. Welcome to the league. The moment would play on highlight reels around the world for days, a basketball rite of passage broadcast live. But beyond the viral moments there was basketball to play. The Mavericks came to win and Luka Doncic made sure of it. He sliced through the Lakers' defense with surgical precision, putting up a triple-double that reminded everyone why Dallas was seen as a championship contender. Kyrie Irving, perhaps feeling the symbolism of the night, played with purpose, outscoring both Jameses combined. Despite the loss, the Lakers walked away with something more valuable than a win: belief. LeBron saw flashes of cohesion in the lineup. Austin Reeves had matured into a reliable secondary scorer. Anthony Davis controlled the paint. The bench looked deeper than in previous seasons. And most importantly, Bronny didn't look overwhelmed. He belonged. As the season progressed, the James duo continued to draw attention, and not just from fans. Opposing players often approached Bronny before or after games, offering quiet encouragement. "Keep your head down. You're doing it right." Some were friends of LeBron. Others were simply veterans who respected the legacy being passed down. For them, facing Bronny wasn't just competition, it was generational. The NBA leaned into the phenomenon. National broadcasts began featuring James family stats during games. LeBron's career milestones were now tracked alongside Bronny's firsts. Interviews with the two often turned personal. What do you talk about after games? Who critiques who? What's it like to be teammates? Behind the scenes, however, the pressure mounted. Every misstep by Bronny was amplified. A missed defensive rotation or quiet shooting night would trigger online debates. Was he truly NBA material? Was this all just a LeBron legacy tour? The criticism was unfair, but predictable. LeBron, ever the media veteran, shielded his son from most of it. In post-game interviews, he took the blame when the team fell short and redirected praise when they won. He made sure Bronny knew, the outside noise would never define his journey. Meanwhile, Lakers fans, particularly the younger generation, embraced the narrative. Crypto.com Arena started seeing more number 6 jerseys with Bronny on the back. Chants of "let them cook" echoed during games where both Jameses played significant minutes. For fans, especially those who had grown up idolizing LeBron and were now watching his son ascend, it was a full-circle moment. Still, basketball is a results-driven league. The Lakers hovered in the middle of the standings, trying to balance youth, experience, and the constant media swirl. Some nights they looked like contenders. Other nights like a team figuring itself out. Through it all, the bond between LeBron and Bronny remained the steady heartbeat. They'd often be seen post-practice working on free throws together. LeBron would occasionally toss a towel at Bronny on the bench in playful frustration. When Bronny had his first 10-point game, LeBron simply patted him on the back and said, "Now do it again." The season was long. The expectations were enormous. But for the James family, it wasn't about proving anything to the outside world. It was about making the most of a moment no other family in NBA history had ever lived. Together, game by game, pass by pass, father and son were writing basketball's most personal chapter yet. By the All-Star break, the magic of the LeBron-Bronny pairing had started to meet the harsh reality of an NBA season. The Lakers sat just above .500, not bad but far from where LeBron wanted them. The Western Conference was brutal, and every loss pushed them closer to the play-in zone. The media frenzy that once celebrated every James family moment had shifted tone. Now the headlines began asking tougher questions. Can the Lakers contend, or are they just a spectacle? The team's chemistry had begun to fray. Injuries piled up. Anthony Davis missed stretches with lingering hip tightness. D'Angelo Russell went cold from deep. Coach Charles Lee found himself juggling rotations, trying to keep veterans rested while giving young players, including Bronny, enough development minutes. And that balance was becoming harder by the day. Privately, tensions began to build. Some within the locker room started to question whether Bronny's presence was influencing rotation decisions. Though no one dared say it publicly, especially not with LeBron in the room, there were whispers. Whispers that maybe certain lineups were being forced. That maybe the spotlight was distracting from the goal. Bronny felt it. He wasn't oblivious. He saw the online chatter, the breakdowns from analysts comparing his PR to other rookies. He knew that every mistake was magnified. In some games he hesitated more, played tighter. And for a league built on confidence, that mattered. LeBron noticed too. Not just as a teammate but as a father. For the first time in years, he began to feel the emotional strain of trying to wear both hats. In the locker room he was the leader, the enforcer, the standard. But at home, he was the dad watching his son navigate a spotlight that even he hadn't faced at that age. After a particularly rough loss to Phoenix, where Bronny logged only 5 minutes and the Lakers surrendered a 20-point lead, LeBron skipped post-game media. Instead, he sat with Bronny in the film room long after the team had left. They didn't speak much. They just watched tape. In silence. 2 generations trying to process the same pressure from different angles. Outside the Lakers' bubble, trade rumors began to circulate. The front office, aware of the ticking clock on LeBron's career, quietly explored ways to retool. Veteran shooters. Backup bigs. A possible move to offload salary and gain a defensive wing. Bronny's name was never on the table, but the atmosphere was tense. Every decision had a ripple effect. Was it time to push all in? Or preserve assets for a future without LeBron? LeBron, for his part, remained outwardly committed. But those close to him knew the signs. When he started giving shorter answers to reporters. When he began sitting deeper on the bench during losses. When he stopped lobbying for minor roster tweaks, a sign that he was evaluating, not building. Whispers around the league reignited. Would he push for a trade if the Lakers couldn't turn things around before the deadline? Rich Paul denied the speculation, calling it noise. But everyone knew that when LeBron wanted something, he didn't need to ask twice. Even Bronny began to question the bigger picture. In quiet moments, he talked with his younger brother Bryce, still in high school, about whether this dream season was what they'd imagined. The highlights were real. The pride was real. But so was the pressure, the criticism, the fatigue. Playing in the NBA was hard. Playing with your father, when your father was LeBron James, was a different kind of challenge altogether. Inside the Lakers organization, a sense of urgency took over. Coach Lee pushed for tighter defensive principles. Veteran players held players-only meetings. LeBron's voice in those rooms remained strong, but slightly more urgent. Less about patience, more about accountability. He knew what was coming. The second half of the season would either be a turning point or a slow unraveling. Either the Lakers would pull together and prove they were more than a narrative, or LeBron would be forced to make the toughest decision of his career, to stay and ride it out or to ask for a path out before the final curtain fell. For now, they prepared for the next road trip. 7 games in 10 days across the East Coast. A make-or-break stretch. A test not just of talent but of resilience. And somewhere in the tension, the James family story continued. Complicated, beautiful, and unfinished. 7 games. 10 days. 5 cities. 1 fragile team. As the Lakers boarded their charter flight for a brutal East Coast road trip, the mood was tense. Everyone knew what was at stake. The organization had circled this stretch of the schedule months ago as a measuring stick. A chance to solidify playoff positioning and prove they belonged in the contender conversation. But now the mission felt heavier. LeBron James, nursing minor ankle soreness, opted to play through it. At 40, rest was no longer a luxury, every game mattered. Bronny, still fighting for consistency, remained locked in but quiet. The father-son storyline had taken a back seat. This wasn't about legacy anymore. This was about survival. The first stop, Boston. The Celtics were rolling and they showed no mercy. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown lit up the Lakers' perimeter defense. LeBron scored 29 in a valiant effort, but the supporting cast struggled. Bronny logged just 8 minutes, missing 2 shots and committing a turnover. The final score wasn't close. The media immediately seized the moment. Lakers unravel in Boston beatdown. Next came a gritty matchup in Toronto. This time the Lakers fought harder. Anthony Davis returned with renewed energy, and Bronny made the most of his limited time. A key deflection, a steal, and his first fast break dunk off a LeBron outlet pass. The Lakers eked out a win, and social media lit up again with clips of James to James. It was a moment of light in a very dim stretch. But the momentum didn't last. Losses in Philadelphia and Brooklyn followed. Close games, but mistakes in crunch time exposed the cracks. LeBron began showing visible frustration. Long stares toward the bench, animated conversations with assistant coaches. Not anger but urgency. The margin for error was gone. In Washington, LeBron exploded for 38 points, a vintage performance. Bronny hit 2 clutch threes in the fourth. The win didn't save the season, but it kept the team breathing. It reminded them, and the league, that when LeBron locked in he could still drag a team forward. But time was running out. Trade deadline week was approaching. Rumors intensified. Reports emerged that the Lakers were shopping veteran guards and considering adding a veteran 3-and-D wing. Names like Malcolm Brogdon, OG Anunoby, and even Zach LaVine surfaced. Nothing was confirmed. Everything was in motion. Whispers about LeBron's mindset resurfaced. Was he finally going to ask for a move? Would he stay loyal to the purple and gold? Was the Bronny factor enough to keep him rooted, or would he pursue a better chance elsewhere? Maybe even Dallas, the team he had flirted with before the season? Privately, sources close to LeBron described him as calculating. He wasn't panicking. But he wasn't blind either. He knew what a championship roster looked like, and what it didn't. He wasn't angry. He was simply weighing. Bronny, meanwhile, stayed focused. He knew he wasn't untouchable, even as LeBron's son. But he also knew he had earned respect in the locker room. Coaches praised his professionalism. Teammates appreciated his effort. He wasn't a star. Not yet. But he was part of the team, not just the narrative. Then came Miami, the final game of the road trip. For LeBron, it was personal. Miami was where he learned to win. Where he became a champion. The Heat crowd gave him a respectful ovation, but once the ball tipped, it was war. The game was physical, fast, intense. LeBron dropped 31. Bronny played 15 solid minutes, hitting a late corner 3 to cut the deficit to 2. The final seconds were chaos. A missed layup. A scramble. A buzzer-beating heave from LeBron, rimmed out. Lakers lost by 1. It was a devastating way to end the road trip. 4 losses. 3 wins. Not disastrous but not convincing either. On the flight back to LA, the mood was muted. No loud music. No card games. Just silence and decisions to be made. The front office had 72 hours to finalize trades. LeBron had 72 hours to decide if he was willing to ride this out or force a change. Bronny, caught in the middle, tried to stay focused. He trained. He watched film. He stayed ready. The road trip hadn't broken the team, but it hadn't saved them either. And now, with the trade deadline looming, the Lakers stood at a crossroads. Would they make the bold move? Would LeBron? Trade deadline day came with the quiet of a storm gathering in the distance. Inside the Lakers facility, staff moved as usual. Trainers taping ankles, assistants reviewing film, players in and out of workouts. But everyone knew this day could change everything. Not just the season but the franchise. Possibly the league. All eyes were on LeBron James. For weeks, speculation had reached a boiling point. Every insider had a theory. Some claimed he'd asked the front office for a blockbuster move. Others insisted he was exploring trade options, even talking to Dallas again. A few believed he would simply ride it out, prioritizing family, legacy, and Bronny's development over another desperate title push. And then silence. No demands. No drama. Just a statement, short and direct, released through Rich Paul. LeBron James is finishing the season with the Los Angeles Lakers. No trade. No distractions. All focus forward. The NBA world exhaled. The king would stay. Inside the locker room, the mood shifted instantly. It wasn't celebration, it was clarity. No more distractions. No more speculation. For better or worse, the Lakers would finish what they started, together. The front office did its part. A quiet, smart deadline. They moved 2 rotational pieces to land a versatile 3-and-D wing and a veteran backup point guard. Not seismic but enough to tighten the screws. LeBron didn't throw a party. He didn't post cryptic tweets. He just showed up to practice, went through his routines and led the team like always. But something was different. This wasn't the LeBron chasing validation. This was the LeBron choosing purpose. He had made the decision not just as a competitor, but as a father. Because staying meant more than contending. It meant presence. It meant finishing the season with Bronny by his side, no matter what the standings said. For Bronny, it was both a relief and a challenge. With the noise cleared, he could focus entirely on improving, and he did. In the final stretch of the season, his minutes increased. His confidence grew. His defense sharpened. The game slowed down. He began to look like a real piece of the Lakers' future, not just a footnote in his father's story. As the playoffs approached, the Lakers surged. They didn't become title favorites, but they found identity. Defense first. Veteran-led. A team with flaws but with a heartbeat. They secured the 6th seed, just enough to avoid the play-in. Enough to earn a chance. In the first round, they pushed the Nuggets to 7 games. LeBron turned back the clock with 40 points in Game 6. Bronny played crucial minutes in Game 4, including a key steal and assist to his father in a comeback win. But in the end, Denver's depth and youth prevailed. The Lakers' season ended in mile-high air, not with confetti but with dignity. In the post-game press conference, LeBron sat next to Bronny. They answered questions together. Talked about growth. About pride. About the journey. "I've played a lot of basketball in my life," LeBron said. "But nothing compares to this season. Nothing." Bronny added quietly, "I just wanted to earn it. I still do." No formal retirement was announced. No last dance declared. LeBron kept the future open. Maybe one more season. Maybe not. He would decide in the summer. But everyone watching understood. If this was the end, it was enough. Not because of stats. Not because of records. But because he finished the way he wanted. With his son. In purple and gold. As a teammate. As a father. And if the story continues, it won't be written just by LeBron anymore. It will belong to Bronny. To the new Lakers. To the next generation. But this chapter, this rare, fleeting, beautiful chapter, belonged to them both.